Hello everyone and welcome to our first tutorial on JavaScript for beginners. My name is Dara O'Neill and I will be your instructor for this course. So what is JavaScript? JavaScript essentially is a scripting or a programming language that gives us the power to give more functionality to websites. So for example, you might use HTML to add an image to a page and CSS to position it or style it. But that's all we can do if all we know is HTML and CSS. So JavaScript can be used to give life or functionality to a website or a web page. So for example, a user might click on a button and we provide them some data, maybe local weather information. Okay, so obviously JavaScript can be used to go get data from a database or an API. Okay. In addition, we can use JavaScript to do other cool stuff like hide content, show content, and even change content. By changing content, I mean we could change the color of text to be red or blue, we could make it bigger or smaller, or maybe even if the user is trying to hover over something with some sort of pop-up, maybe we're working for an airline and we're trying to encourage them to buy a product on our website. So JavaScript works very well alongside HTML and CSS, and sometimes people describe this as almost like building a house. HTML, hypertext markup language, is the building blocks of building a house. Okay, HTML, you can put text on a page, images on a page, but that's really all you can do. CSS is the styling. That's where you can change the size, the positioning, etc. And JavaScript is providing functionality. So some people often describe HTML, CSS, and JavaScript working together to build websites as almost like building a house. HTML is the building blocks. It's the timber frames, it's the concrete. CSS is the styling, painting the walls, putting in some nice tiles, etc. But JavaScript is the functionality. That is where light switches work, where you turn on a tap and there's water. So JavaScript is a very powerful language used to power most of the current World Wide Web. So what will we be learning in this series? We'll be covering all the basics together. So we'll be learning about how to use the console, variables, the different data types in JavaScript, so strings, Boolean, numbers, arrays, objects, etc., loops, part of control flow. So that's what we have to look forward to in this tutorial series. So let's begin our journey together. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to write our first piece of JavaScript code together. So what we're going to do is we're going to create an index.html file. So we'll create a very basic web page with some boilerplate HTML. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to link to an external JavaScript file. When I say an external JavaScript file, we're just going to create a file in Visual Studio Code, our text editor, and then we're just going to link up the HTML page to the JavaScript page. So what I've done is on my desktop, I've created a folder called js-yt for YouTube, and in here what I'm going to do is I'm going to just save an index.html file, so that'll be the web page, and then a script.js file. So I'll explain all of this to you. So inside of our Visual Studio Code, I'm just going to say File, Open Folder, and I just want to select, I'm personally selecting this one here called JSYT. The name isn't really important, but basically it just means now that I've selected it, when I create a file, we're going to be saving it inside of the that folder. So I'm going to say File, Save As, and I'm just going to call this file index.html, and that will change the file extension to be of HTML. Okay, so it's where we can write our boilerplate code. Now, I could manually type out, the opening and closing head tag, the title tags, and the body, etc. But Visual Studio Code can give us boilerplate HTML. If you just write out HTML:5, okay, and inside of the body tags, the opening and closing body tag, we'll just create a H1, okay, so a heading 1, and we'll just say JavaScript is awesome or is amazing or something like that. Control S to save. Okay, great. And what we can do is, if I just go into this folder and double click on my index.html file, will just take a moment. We have this web page that just says JavaScript is awesome. Okay, great. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to create a script file. So we're going to call this script.js. I'm going to say file. You can say new file or new text file, whatever the case may be. And I'm just going to call it script.js and hit enter. And whoops, script.js. So the JS extension is important, and create file. And now what we have here is we have in the same folder, I'll just prove this to you, we have an index.html and we have a script.js file, okay? And you can see that there. So JavaScript source file, and this is a Chrome HTML document. So this is the web page where we can put content like an image, etc. And the script file is where we can write JavaScript. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to link up these two files. If I was to start writing JavaScript code in here, nothing is going to happen on our web page because we haven't told this index.html file to look out or listen out for any JavaScript code. So how you do that is we're going to have an opening and closing script tag, and by convention it's best to put them right before the closing body tag, okay? And the reason for that is it allows the web browser to load all of your HTML content first, images, etc., before loading the JavaScript file, because if there's an issue with your JavaScript file and you put the script tags up here before the content, you know, there could be some issues with your web page loading if you have any errors in your JavaScript file. So what we're going to do is we're just going to create an opening and closing script tag. So I'll just say script, if I can spell that correctly, script, yep. So the opening script tag and the closing script tag. And inside of the opening script tag, I'm going to say source, SRC, and the source attribute is basically waiting for us to tell it where to point to, where to listen out for the script file. And because they're in the same folder, I can just type out script.js. So now if I press Ctrl S to save this document, the circle disappears. This HTML file is now hooked up or listening out for code here in the JavaScript file. Now to prove that to you, we're going to do an alert hello world. So if I refresh this document here, nothing happens, okay? And remember that title is called document because of here. We can just say, you know, JS series if you want to change the title there of the document. Hopefully you know that already from basic HTML. So let's write some JavaScript. The first thing we're going to do is just write out alert, that keyword alert, and then parentheses. So to get the parentheses, press shift and then the number 9. And if it doesn't give you the closing parentheses, just press shift and 0. And inside of alert, what I want you to do is have quotations. So you can use single quotes or you can use double quotes. The important thing is whatever you start with, you finish with. I will use double quotations, and I just want to say hello world. And then what we can do is just put a semicolon here. Now this entire thing is known as a statement in JavaScript. It is a one-line statement, and what this should do is alert out to the browser hello world if we've got this to work. First we need to save the file, so press Ctrl S to save. The little circle disappears, so we've saved it. If I then come down to the Google Chrome browser, the icon and refresh, we should now see this page says hello world. Okay, awesome. And you don't need to just alert out hello world as well. You could alert out something else like, you know, I love the weekend or something like that. Okay, Control S to save. And if we refresh, we get a new message, I love the weekend. And notice how there's a little circle going on here. I don't know if my video editor will capture it, but this page says I love the weekend. And only when I press OK does the text load there. So that's quite interesting. So this is sort of, you know, how web pages can interact with each other. So listen, we've covered the basics there in this tutorial. So what we did is we just created boilerplate HTML. We then have learned how we can basically create a JavaScript file by saying script. That's a good convention name. .js. The JS extension is important. That way your computer knows and browsers know it is a JavaScript file. And to get it hooked up, you have your opening script tag and your closing script tag. And inside of the opening script tag, you just want to have source is equal to script.js. And the reason it's script.js is the file name is script, that's what I called it, and it has a .js extension for JavaScript. And then to alert something out to the browser, all we have to do is say the keyword alert. And then we have our parentheses, and inside of quotations, we just have a message. We set hello world, and then I love the weekend. Okay, awesome. So in the next tutorial, I'll show you how to use the console, and then we'll start looking at variables and data types in JavaScript. So I'll see you in the next one. Hello friends, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial, I'm going to show you or introduce you to the console in JavaScript using Google Chrome. The console is a really cool thing to understand and to know when you're working with JavaScript. What you can do is you can log out messages to the console and write JavaScript there. We'll be sticking with writing all of our JavaScript code in this tutorial series in Visual Studio Code, but the console is very powerful, so I want to show you why it's great. So what I've done is I've opened a new tab here in Google. So what you can do is in the top right hand corner of your screen, there should be 3 little dots. If you scroll down to more tools and then go into developer tools, or you can press Ctrl+Shift+I, what this does is it opens up the console for us. So what you're able to do, we'll just clear the console here. Clear console. Okay. So what you're able to do in here is you're able to write a JavaScript code. Okay. So to prove that to you, we're just going to write alert and then hello world. So we can write alert. We have our opening parentheses. I'll use single quotations. We'll say hello world, single quote to end that message, parentheses, and then semicolon to end the statement. Now what happens when I press enter or run the code? We alert out, Google Chrome says, hello world. So just for some practice, try alert out your name or a celebrity you'd like to meet. I would like to meet Britney Spears because I listened to her music when I was younger. I listen to a lot of Miley Cyrus now actually, so do Miley Cyrus. Okay. So again, we've seen alert before. All you do is you write the keyword alert, open your parentheses. If you're starting a message with a single quote, end it with a single quote. And now if I press enter, we see Google Chrome says Miley Cyrus. Okay, awesome. So just going to clear the console. So what we can actually do is we can log out messages to our console here in our index page that we've done. Okay, so to prove that to you, what I'm going to do is we're going to write some code. So let's just first of all open the console. Okay, so let's just see here. More tools. Developer tools, and then we have the console there. So what we're going to do is we're going to write out some JavaScript to the console. So we have our index.html file, which we saw previously, and what we're doing is we're linking to this JavaScript file here. So inside of our script.js, we can write out our code. So remember, in the last tutorial, we alerted out I love the weekend. So if we refresh, this page says I love the weekend. So we're going to delete that code. We still love the weekend, but rather than alerting that out, why don't we log that to the console instead? So all we have to do to log out messages to the console is say console.log, and inside of parentheses our message, and we can say, you know, we love the weekend, okay, semicolon to end our statement. I'm going to press Ctrl+S to save. Notice the little circle disappears because I've saved the file. And if I scroll down now to Chrome, and then refresh, we see here, we get a message, we love the weekend. Okay, awesome. So you can do more than just log out messages. You can actually log out numbers as well if you wanted. So you could say console.log, you know, the number 2, for example. So if I save and refresh, we're going to see the number 2. I just logged it out, just so you're aware. You can log out numbers to the console, but you can also perform, you know, math operations as well. So, you know, like what's 2 plus 2? What's going to be logged out to the console? It's actually going to be the result of that operation, so it's going to be 4. Okay, great, awesome. And just for one last piece of practice, just maybe log out your name to the console. So console.log, my name is Dara. Right, so let's just save and refresh. And for one last piece of practice, let's just log out the name of a celebrity we'd like to meet. So say console.log, you know, Britney, your music is great. And I spelled music doesn't seem right. Anyway, semicolon, end the statement, and refresh. We say, Brittany, your music is great. Okay, awesome. So guys, in that tutorial, we basically learned about the console for the first time. We'll be working a lot with the console in this course. As I say, you can actually write JavaScript directly in the console, but for the purposes of this course, we're going to be writing all of our JavaScript inside of our script.js file. The console is very powerful, especially when you write more advanced programs, when you're trying to troubleshoot or find out what's going wrong, or maybe you're trying to get external data from an API for the first time, maybe a weather API or the YouTube API, and you want to make sure it's working. Sometimes it's great just to log stuff out of the console to make sure you're getting the data that you want. Okay guys, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hello friends and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial I'm going to teach you about comments in JavaScript. So in JavaScript you can write comments to other developers. Maybe you've written a large piece of code and you're just explaining what the code does, or you've written a large piece of code and you have comments, almost like titles above each block of code explaining what the code does. You know, this bit here the user logs in, this bit here the user presses a button and a certain video plays. So comments are not executed by JavaScript. So you know the way here we've written console.log, you know, we love the weekend, console.log the number 2, console.log 2 plus 2. When the browser runs this code, you've noticed here I've actually written a comment in JavaScript. So how you write a comment in JavaScript is you just write // and whatever it is you want to write. So I'm going to say I am a comment. Now, so far in this course, we've seen how we can alert a message and how we can log something to the console. When we refresh the browser, you're not going to see anywhere comments in JavaScript or I am a comment. So just to prove that to you, I'm going to just go down to Google Chrome and refresh the page. And you notice that we don't see our comments anywhere. Okay, so comments essentially don't execute to the browser. So you can write a single line comment using //. You can also write a multi-line comment. So how you do that is you write a /*, and then you can say I am a multi-line comment. And how you close it out is you just do an asterisk and a / again. So if I save now, nothing is going to happen. We're not logging anything out to the console and we're not alerting it anything, okay? So what we'll do is we'll just write a comment saying this piece of code alerts something to the browser, and then another comment, this logs something to the console. So we'll say the code below alerts hello world to the browser. Okay, so that's just a comment in JavaScript. And how we would alert something to the browser, as we know, is we would just say alert, parentheses, use single quotes or double quotes. It's up to you. Just make sure whatever you start with, you end with. So I'm using single quotes. So we'll say hello world, and then semicolon to end our statement. So what's going to happen is our browser is going to open this script.js, and it's going to say, okay, comments in JavaScript, I can ignore that. We have another comment here. The code below alerts hello world to the browser, and then we've written our code, alert hello world. So if I now save and refresh, we get hello world. Okay, awesome. Just for practice, what we can do is we can delete that and we can say maybe the code below logs hello world to the console. So we've seen how to use the console before. We can say console.log. I'll use single quotes again. Hello world, semicolon to end our statement. I'm going to press Control S to save the file. So the circle's disappeared. So now we've updated our code. When I refresh, we don't alert anything, but we say hello world. Okay. So guys, that is a single line comment in JavaScript. I beg your pardon, and a multi-line comment. Okay. Now you can also, if you wanted to, you can basically, I'm going to show you another thing you can do is say you had a block of code like that. So 5 hello worlds for some reason. We'll just save and refresh. So we get hello world a few times. If you want to comment out a block of code, all you need to do is press Control /. If I then press Control S to save the script file, all of that code has been commented out. And if I save and refresh, we no longer see that. So maybe if you're writing a more complex piece of code, there's an error, something's gone wrong, you can comment out the code and have a look through it to see what's gone wrong so the browser isn't yelling at you. If you want to uncomment out code, maybe you're happy with it, you can just again press Control / and then the code comes back. And if we save and refresh, we see that now. Okay, awesome. So guys, the key takeaway from this tutorial is we can write comments in JavaScript. You can write a single line comment using the / twice. So I am a single line comment. You can also write a multi-line comment using /*. I like the Spice Girls. Okay. And then */ that's a multi-line comment. And basically, comments are really used in the real world to write messages to other developers. Okay, so remember, if you get really good at coding and end up getting a job as a developer, you'll have to write large complex pieces of code, and basically what will happen is you'll be writing comments so other developers can understand your code. So I'll see you in the next tutorial where we will be learning about variables, a very important concept in JavaScript. So I'll see you then. Hello everyone and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial we're going to start talking about variables and the different data types that we can work with in JavaScript. So what is a variable? Well, what we can do is we can store data in a variable and then refer to that variable later or do something with it. So for example, maybe you've learned a bit of HTML and CSS and you're creating a fictional website, maybe a donut company for some reason, okay? And it's a nice website, people can go on and look at your menu, but you decide you want to start getting into sales, you want to start getting people to sign up to your website. Maybe it's a subscription, and every Saturday you're going to get up early and deliver donuts, right? Well, what I've done is I've gone to the Stripe website here because you might want to sign people up to your business in the way Stripe here has sort of this online sign-up form. So you might need to get someone's name, their email, their payment information, etc. So their name and email, that data type would be known as a string. It is a string of data, it's text. Whereas their card number, Visa, MasterCard, etc., that's going to be a number. The expiry date can be a number, etc. Their postcode, etc. And then you might have like a Boolean, a true or false value. Are they signed up already? Because you want to take this data and store it in your database. So conceptually, as I say, there are different types of data types we want to work with in JavaScript. Strings, numbers, adding numbers together, Boolean, true or false, null, which we'll speak about later on in the course. But we'll talk about this over a few different tutorials. For this tutorial, what I want you to do is just learn how to create a variable and assign it a value. So how we do that is we can use the let keyword in JavaScript. So I'm going to say let age equal 32. That's actually my age. And semicolon to end the statement. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the let keyword. Okay, I'm saying let age. I've decided to call the variable age, and I've used this equal signs here, and I've assigned it the value of 32. 32 is a number. So the equal sign in JavaScript is known as the assignment operator. So what we've done is we've used the keyword let to create a variable. We've named the variable age, okay? And using the assignment operator, or the equal sign, the assignment operator, we've assigned the variable called age the value of 32. And now what I can do is I can actually log out to the console this variable. So if I say console.log, I think their age is, okay, so I'm just consting out a string here, comma separate, and we're going to log out the value of age. What's going to happen? Well, we're logging out to the console. I think their age is, and that's a string, comma, okay, and then age. And what we can do is we can just create an extra space there so it reads nicer. So age actually has a value of 32, so it's not going to log out I think their age is age. It's going to log out I think their age is 32. So to prove that to you, let's save and refresh. And we get I think their age is 32. So congratulations, you've actually just basically created your first variable there. just for practice, I'm going to write a comment. We're going to say create a variable called, I want you to call it my name, and write out either your name or someone that is your hero. So what we're going to do is, again, we're going to say let, and I'm going to create a variable called my name. I'm going to assign it the value of Dara, so single quotes, okay? And then I can log out the variable my name to the console. So my name, and if I save and refresh, let's have a look, and we get Dara is logged out of the console. So what did we do here? Well, I wrote a single line comment using the /. We've seen comments previously, and I just gave you instructions. I said create a variable called my name. Okay. So what I did was I used the let keyword. So I'm saying let my name. Then I've used the equal sign, and remember the equal sign. Okay, the equal sign is the assignment operator. Okay, so that is the assignment operator, and we use that to assign a value to a variable. So what we've done here is I've taken my name, a string called Dara, and I've assigned it to this variable, my name, and then I logged it out to the console. Okay, so I'm just going to give you one last instruction, and then we'll do another tutorial on the data types. What I want you to do is I want you to create a variable called hero and assign it the string value of Bruce Wayne or Batman. It's up to you. Okay, so how would we do that? Well, we know we can create a variable using the let keyword. So we say let, we're going to call the variable hero, and how do we assign the value of Bruce Wayne to hero? We use the assignment operator, or the equal sign, and we can use single quotes. We're going to say Bruce Wayne. Okay, then what we can do is we can just log out to the console the value of hero. So remember, to log something out of the console, we just say console.log parentheses and hero. So hero, the variable, has a value of Bruce Wayne. So if I save and refresh, we get Bruce Wayne. Okay, awesome. And what you could do as well is we could actually maybe log out to the console something like, I think Batman's real name is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use double quotations to open up this string, and I'm going to say, I think Batman's real name is, comma, separate that string from the variable, and I'm going to write it hero. So what do you think is going to happen here? Well, what we're doing is we're saying console.log, we're instructing the console to log out a message to the console, which you've seen before, we've seen the console, and inside of parentheses, so I have my opening parentheses here and my closing parentheses, and I'm ending this entire statement, this line of code, with a semicolon, and inside of the parentheses, I'm opening with a double quote, and we have a string here. I think Batman's real name is, note the little space there at the end. I'm comma separating this string that I wrote with the hero variable, and hero is a variable of type string, and we know it's going to say Bruce Wayne, because up here we've created a variable called hero. We've said let hero equal Bruce Wayne. So logging out to the console now, we're going to see I think Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne. So let's just save and refresh, and we see here I think Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is an introduction to variables in JavaScript. We'll talk more about variables and data types over the next few tutorials. Basically in JavaScript, you can create a variable and store data in it. It is very useful if you want to get information from a user. Maybe someone is signing up to your website and you want to get their name, their age, their email, etc. Okay, so guys, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Okay guys, in this tutorial I just want to spend a bit more time working with strings, because I've taught you how to create a variable and assign it a value, but I also want to show you how you can essentially reassign a variable a different value. We're going to work with strings again in this tutorial, then in the next tutorial we'll look at numbers. Okay, so what I want to do is let's delete all of that there, and what I want to do is I want to just create a variable called string. We'll call it our favorite hero. We'll call it we'll assign a value of, let's say, Batman, and then we'll reassign it the value of Superman later on in the tutorial. So we know how we can create a variable. We use the let keyword. So we'll say let hero, or we could say favorite hero. So we'll say let favorite hero equal, we're going to assign the value of Superman. Okay, so we've seen this before. We've used the let keyword. This is our name for our variable. So we're calling a favorite hero. So normally with naming conventions with variables, you use camel case where there's more than one word. So what I mean by that is this. If we were going to call it hero, hero would be lowercase. But if we wanted to call it favorite hero, first word favorite is lowercase, but the second and subsequent words begin with an uppercase, okay? So favorite hero, okay? So we have let favorite hero equal Superman, the string. So what we've done here is we've created a variable and assigned it the value of Superman. And remember, Superman is of type string, okay? Superman is of type string. And what we can do is just log that out to the console. So if we say console.log, our favorite hero is, and all we need to do is just write out our favorite hero there, semicolon to end statement. So let's save and refresh. I'm going to go down to Google Chrome. Whoops, apologies. I'm uploading my, I'm uploading the content as I go along. Okay, so now let's refresh. Our favorite hero is Superman. Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Right, now, what if we wanted to reassign the value of favorite hero to a different hero? Well, what we can do is we can do that. Now, I don't need to say let favorite hero again, okay? We've already created the variable here, initialized it using the let keyword. So we don't need to recreate the variable. What we can do is just say favorite hero and then assign that a new value, and we're going to call that Batman. So now, if I copy this code here, where we're saying console.log, our favorite hero is favorite hero, it's actually going to be Batman down here. Remember, JavaScript will execute the code line by line. So it's going to come into our script and say, okay, that's a comment. What's happening here? Well, the developer, me and you, who've written this code, they're saying let favorite hero, the variable name, be assigned the value of Superman, the string. And then they're asking me to log out to the console using console.log. Our favorite hero is, favorite hero. So that will be our favorite hero is Superman. But later on, what we do here is we're actually reassigning the favorite hero variable a new value of Batman. So this variable now has a different value in it. And you do want to do that sometimes with variables, update the value. For example, maybe you have a variable called age in a database, and when it reaches a certain date, you want to increase the user's age by 1. Maybe you're getting stock data and the stock data has changed. So you do, on occasion, want to update the value of a variable by reassigning it a different value after you've initialized or created the variable for the first time. So when you create a variable for the first time, you do need to use the let keyword. But down here, we've already created the variable. We don't need to recreate it. We're just assigning a new value. So we're going to log out to the console. Our favorite hero is favorite hero. So let me just go down to Google Chrome and refresh. And we see here, the first time the code runs, our favorite hero is Superman. And then we get our favorite hero as Batman. And remember, that's because for our favorite hero variable, we assign it a value of Superman. Then we just log out to the console. Our favorite hero is favorite hero. That variable favorite hero is assigned the value of Superman. That's why we see this text here. Our favorite hero is Superman. But then later on, in line 6, or on line 6, we reassign or update the value of the favorite hero variable. We assign it a value of Batman, okay? So now favorite hero, the variable, no longer has a value of Superman. It now has a value of Batman. Then we log out to the console. Our favorite hero is favorite hero, i.e. Batman. So remember, variables are basically almost just like a container where you can store data in them. So, okay, great. So we worked again with strings in this tutorial. what we'll do now, and you also learned that not only can you create or initialize a variable, you can also reassign it a value. To show you a very quick example of that, we could say let hero equal Superman. So we've created or initialized a variable, created a variable called hero, and using the assignment operator, we've assigned it the string value of Superman. But then what we can do is reassign the value of hero if we wanted a new value of Batman. And now if we log out that to the console, console.log the value of hero, what do you think we're going to see? Well, we're going to log out Batman, aren't we? Because we initialize a variable or create a variable for the first time called hero. So when you initialize a variable you're creating for the first time, we use the assignment operator, one equal sign, to provide that container, the hero variable of value of Superman. But then what we do here is we actually update or reassign a new value to the hero variable, and that value is now the string of Batman. And all we do then on this line here is just log out the variable hero to the console. So what do you think we're going to see? Well, we're just going to see Batman. Okay guys, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial where we'll be working with numbers. Hey friends, welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial, there's a few additional things I'd like you to learn about. So far we've learned that, well, we've learned about the concept of variables, right? We can declare a variable and assign it a value. But the first thing I want to talk about is the variable naming conventions. So let's say we create a variable called hero. So let's say let hero equal Batman, okay? Because the variable is only one word, the first letter is a lowercase, okay? So we've seen that previously, okay? But if you're going to do a word with two letters or more, you want to have, that camel case. So we could say, for example, the hero. So the first letter of the first word is lowercase, but for every subsequent word, it starts with an uppercase. That's known as camel case, okay? Now, the other thing as well is when you're creating a variable name, well, also the other thing is if you hover on a variable, you notice it tells you the type. So you see there it says let hero :string. It is telling us that that variable is of type string. And for example, we could do let hero age be equal to, we'll say 34. And if we hover on that, we see hero age is of type number. But if we do, let's say, hero name, and we say equal to Batman, and we hover on that, it is of type string. So this is basically us creating a variable of type string, and this is us creating a variable. We're saying let hero age equal 34, and that is a variable of type number. Okay, awesome. Now, when it comes to naming conventions, not only can you use letters to name a variable, you can also use at the end of the variable underscore, $, and numbers. So for example, I could say hero name 1, hero name 12, hero name, or even hero number 250, okay? I could also say hero and give it a $, or hero with an undercase, okay? Now, you can also do that at the start. You could have underscore hero, you could have $, hero, but if I try to put a number at the start of a variable name, JavaScript starts giving out to me, okay? So basically, you cannot start a variable name with a number, okay? So just so you are aware of that. Okay, great. We've seen before that when you want to create a variable, you have to use the let keyword, give your variable some sort of name, use the equal sign, i.e. the assignment operator, to assign it some sort of value, okay? But there's other ways you can create a variable as well. You can use the var keyword. So you could say var hero is equal to Batman. You can say let hero, or you could even say const, okay? So what are the differences? Well, var stands basically for variable. Var was the old way in JavaScript before JavaScript got more modern, which we'll speak about later on in the course. But essentially, var stands for variable. So this used to be var for variable, hero equals Batman, but let is the more modern way, okay? So then, what is the difference between, for example, let and const? So, difference between let and const. What is the difference? Well, when you initialize or create a variable using the let keyword, you're able to reassign or update the value of that variable later on in the code. So for example, maybe I want to say let hero equal Batman, that's fine. I want to say let hero age equal 32. And what we can do later on in the code is update the hero age to be 33. Happy birthday, Bruce Wayne. And if we console.log out hero age, well, what do you think we're going to see? Pause the video. Well, we're going to log out to the console 33, right? Because for Batman, we've created a variable called hero age, assigned it the value of 32. But then later on here, we update the value of hero age and reassign it a value of 33. So when we log out to the console hero age, we actually got 33 because when we first created the variable hero age, we initialized this variable using the let keyword and assigned it a value of 32. But down here, we update that value to 33. But what if we had Batman or Bruce Wayne's email and we didn't want to let anyone update the value in our database, other developers? We can use the const keyword. So if I say const, we'll say Bruce Wayne's email, and we'll say this is going to be Bruce Wayne is awesome at Wayne enterprises.com or something like that, right? Well, if I console.log the variable Bruce Wayne's email, okay, we're just going to see that logged out of the console. So you've seen this before. I've created a variable, but I've used the const keyword. Const really stands for constant. The variable, once you've initialized it or created it and assigned it a value, you cannot then update the value later on in the course, okay? So remember, when we use the let keyword to create a variable, okay, we can basically update the value of the variable later on, okay? However, when we use the const keyword, we cannot then later update the value or reassign a new value to the variable, okay? We cannot then later update the value of the variable, okay? Of the variable. And to show this to you, what I'm going to do is let's just look at the console. So we know we've logged out Bruce Wayne's email. Just want to show you the value. So Bruce Wayne is awesome at WayneEnterprises.com, okay? What if I then try to take Bruce Wayne's email and assign it a new value? If I want to say, Bruce Wayne's email is equal to, we'll say maybe it's Wonder Woman at gmail.com, right? Okay, well, what happens when I save and refresh? Okay, if I then log out to the console, Bruce Wayne's email, let's just see what happens. Okay, let's come here and refresh. Okay, we're getting an error. Okay, so we're saying uncaught type error assignment to constant variable. So it's given out to us on line 18. Okay, so what happens is on line 18, Bruce Wayne's email, we're trying to reassign, i.e. update the value of that variable, but JavaScript is saying you're not allowed to do that. You created the variable with the const keyword, so I'm not letting you update it. And what you notice is, because we're getting an error, we don't actually see this line logged out to the console. Okay, so the code basically breaks, it stops working. So to fix that, what you could do is, firstly, you could change that to type let, okay? So we're saying let Bruce Wayne's email equal to, because it's a variable declared with the let keyword, okay, you are able to update the value. So if we save and refresh, we have here Bruce Wayne is awesome, and then we've Wonder Woman's email, right? So we've stopped our error, but that makes no sense because remember, we don't want anyone to update the value of Bruce Wayne's email. So we can change that back to const, okay? And then if we wanted to store Wonder Woman's email, well, we'd have to create a variable for her, wouldn't we? So we could say let Wonder Woman email be assigned that value, okay? So that now when I save and refresh, okay, we're getting no errors, okay? Awesome, because really what we're doing is we're creating a variable using the const keyword. Bruce Wayne's email is equal to assigning the value. We logged it out to the console. Then we just create a variable for Wonder Woman. We don't log that out to the console, so maybe we should do that. So we just say console.log Wonder Woman email. And now what we've done is we've created const variables of type const for both Batman's email and Wonder Woman's email, and all your friends are going to be jealous because you get to hang around with the best heroes from the DC universe, and Superman and Robin and the Flash and Aquaman, they're going to join us later. Okay, awesome. So guys, the key takeaway from this tutorial is when you are creating a variable, you can use var, let, const keywords. Var is the old way of doing it. So in this course, I'm going to be using the let keyword. But if you want to create a variable, but you don't want it to be updated or reassigned a new value later, all you have to do is initialize or first declare or create that variable with the const keyword. Okay, awesome. So guys, I'll see you in the next tutorial. Okay, in this tutorial, and welcome back obviously, I just want to introduce you to the concept of string concatenation. String concatenation is a fancy way of saying adding two strings together. So let's work in this tutorial with Bruce Wayne again, okay, or Clark Kent, it's up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to say let, maybe we'll say like Batman first name, and we're going to assign that a value of Bruce, semicolon to end our statement there. So this entire line of code, that's known as a statement, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to say let Batman second or last name equal to Wayne. Okay, awesome. Now, if I wanted to log out Bruce Wayne to the console, what I could do is I could say console.log, and we're able to do this. I can comma separate and just log out both variables. So I can say console.log Batman first name, comma, and then Batman second name, okay? So if I just save and refresh, I'll go down to Google Chrome. Whoops, sorry again. Just uploading the videos as I go. So basically, we see there, I've logged out to the console Bruce Wayne. Okay, that's awesome. Now, another thing you could do is you can actually do string concatenation, so add these together. So for example, what we could do is we could say let Batman full name, and notice the use of camel case there. Because there's more than one word in the variable name, the first letter of the first word is lowercase, but for every subsequent word, I'm using an uppercase letter, so a capital F and a capital N. And what I want to do is just assign this the value of Batman first name plus, so I'm adding together, Batman second name. So because both of these variables are of type string, I am able to do this. And now what I can do is I can just say, basically, I think Batman's real name is, and we're just going to put in here Batman full name. So what do you think is going to be logged out to the console? Well, we've declared a variable called Batman first name. We've assigned it a value of Bruce. Then we've said let Batman second name be equal to Wayne. Then we've created this variable, let Batman full name be equal to Batman first name, which is Bruce, plus Batman second name, which is Wayne. So now we're logging out to the console. I think Batman's real name is Batman full name, so that'll be Bruce Wayne. So let's just save and refresh. And we see there we get, I think Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne. And what you could do as well is you could concatenate again an empty string to have a space between Bruce and Wayne. So you notice there, Bruce Wayne, there's no gap. So what you can do is just string concatenate on an empty space there in the string. So now we're going to have, I think Batman's real name is Bruce Wayne. Okay, awesome. Now, just a thing to note here, right? You notice here for Bruce and Wayne, I opened and closed with a single quote. I did a single quote here and a closing single quote for the empty string. But down here, I used a double quote to open and close this string. Well, that's because I wanted to make life easy for myself. If I had used a single quote there, the string would have actually ended here, because you notice way for Batman's, I'm using the, I suppose you could say apostrophe there, single quote. What happens if I had tried to do that with this, right? Whoops. Okay, you notice here I'm getting a lot of errors. You're saying, Dara, what have you done? Well, what's happening here is, right, I'm trying to say, I think Batman's real name is, but JavaScript, because I used a single quote, when it gets to like the apostrophe on the S, it's ending the string there. So now it's saying, what are you doing? You've written an S. Is that a variable? Real name is, right? So basically to fix that, what I could do is I could just go back to using the double quote, okay, and add on our double quote again. Sorry, apologies. Okay, so now I fixed it. If you're saying, Dara, that's cheating, you know, you want to be consistent, use single quotes all the way along. Well, what we can do is we can use an escape character. So I'll put a single quote there and a single quote here. And what I can do is, with the apostrophe S, is you're actually able to escape a character. Okay, apologies. Okay, now, there, sorry. Sorry it took so long. So basically what I've done here is I've used the slash here. So after the slash, it treats the next character after it. It's basically escaping it, okay? So it knows, okay, to basically treat that apostrophe as part of the string rather than end in the string there. Because you see the way here, it starts with a single quote. It's coming along here. Whoops, sorry. It's coming along here. And the next time it gets to a single quote, it's been escaped because I have that, basically that backslash ahead of it, okay? But if I was to get rid of that backslash, you know, I break the code, okay? So you could put back in the backslash, apologies, okay? Or what you could do is you could leave it in and just go back to having double quotes either side, okay? So just in case you're messing around with strings and you're getting errors, just make sure if you open with a single quote that you close with a single quote, and that if you open with a double quotation, so this guy here, that you also close with a double quotation there. And again, as I say, what you can do is if you did want to use single quotes, so go back to single quotes and just ruin the code here, and what you can do is just in front of that apostrophe to escape it. So instead of JavaScript thinking the string ends here, you want it to realize the string ends all the way back down there. What you can do is just put in that backslash on front of that single quote there, and it knows to treat it as part of the string rather than ending the string there, okay? So I hope that tutorial made sense. Basically, in this tutorial, we learned about string concatenation. You can do it, by the way, you know, with various different strings as well. They don't have to be variables, you know. So you could have multiple strings. You could say let sentence equal to I really like, and then for some reason you want to add on lemons. Okay, so you're able to do that as well. So if I console.log out to the browser sentence, you're going to see here it says I really like lemons. Okay, so let me just save and refresh. Okay, and we see here I really like lemons. So you're probably wondering why string concatenation is important. Well, what if you wanted to say hello to a user who's logged in, you know, hello user name? You don't want to say name for every person, you want to actually have their name. So really, string concatenation is very useful with variables. And in the next tutorial, I'll show you backticks where we're able to embed variables into, you know, basically embed values into a string in an easier and cleaner way than what we've seen in this tutorial. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, welcome back. In this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to a concept in JavaScript known as template literals. So with template literals, right, we're essentially able to write a string, but it is a much more convenient way to embed or inject variables into a sentence or a string rather than using a lot of string concatenation. So let me just show you what I mean by this. I want to create a few variables. We're going to work with Superman today, right? So we're going to say let name equal Clark Kent. We'll say let age equal, maybe he's 34, okay? And we'll say let workplace camel case, equal, and he works at the Daily Planet. Okay, the Daily Planet. Okay, awesome. Now, what if I wanted to write a string using these variables and I said something like, Superman's real name is Clark Kent, he is 34, and he works at the Daily Planet. Well, let's look at how long this is going to be, right? So we'll call this sentence. So let's say let sentence, or text, we could say let text. Sentence is fine. Let sentence equal. Okay, I'm going to use double quotes. So I'm going to say, okay, Superman's real name is string concatenate on name, okay? And he is string concatenate again. He is age, string concatenate again, years old, and his place of work, or we could say, and he works at, and we add on here, workplace, right? Now, let's just log this out to the console, console.log sentence, or variable. What have I been doing with my browser? Oh, grand. I haven't been on YouTube again. Watching the news. Okay, so Superman's real name is Clark Kent and he is 34 years old and he works at the Daily Planet. We need to have a little space there after Clark Kent. So there we go. There's a space, right? Now, look at how long that sentence is, right? So I'm going to show you a different way of doing this. And we're going to do this using string concatenation. So I'm going to comment that out, right? And what I'm going to do is, we're going to do this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, we'll call it text this time, let text equal. And with string concatenation, what you do is, right, you press shift and then, oops, no shift, apologies. Press the key to the left of number 1 on your keyboard. And what you're going to get is backticks. Okay, so these are backticks, okay? So this isn't an opening single quote or double quote. These are backticks. So again, on your keyboard, press the button to the left of the number 1, okay? And what this is a backtick. So the backticks allow us to create what is known as a template literal. So this here is a string. It's commented out, but it is a string. This here is a template literal. And what it allows us to do is, it allows us to embed using a $sign and curly braces variable names in a much more easy way. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to say, okay, Superman's real name is, right? This looks a bit weird at first. I promise you'll get used to it with practice. But to put in a variable, to inject or embed a variable into a template literal, we have our $sign and our curly braces. And what I can do is I can just type in name and then continue on with my sentence. So I can say Superman's real name is, and he is, so I want to embed or put in the variable age here. So again, we have our $sign and our curly braces, and he is age, years old, and he works at, curly braces with the $sign again, so $sign, curly braces. So with a template literal, so I've created a variable called text, I've assigned it the value of this template literal. The template literal open and closes with backticks, which you find to the left of number 1 on your keyboard, and it allows you to very easily put in variables into the template literal. Okay, so what you do is you have the text, but if you want to put in a variable inside of a template literal, all you need to do is just have your $sign, your curly braces. Okay, so this bit of text here, it is a bit shorter than the first one, even though text technically is a shorter word than sentence. But if I just save and refresh, so I am allowed to, create a variable called sentence, because this sentence here is commented out. JavaScript is just ignoring it. Okay, so let sentence equal this template literal. Okay, and if we log that out to the console, we should get the same result basically. So it still works for us. Superman's real name is Clark Kent, and he's 34 years old, and he works at the Daily Planet. Okay, awesome. So That, my friends, is a template literal in JavaScript. To be honest, it's just an easier way of writing, basically code. So you see here we have the variable names there. So what we could do is we could just say, if you want to be more descriptive, hero name, hero age, and hero workplace. You will have to update that then inside of here. So hero name, hero age. We're just being descriptive, that's all. Hero age. And then hero workplace. So hero workplace. Okay, and just make sure you spell the variables correctly. Okay, awesome. So basically, it's just a more convenient way for basically putting variables into some sort of string of text. Remember, technically, this variable has been assigned the value of a template literal. So it's a template literal, but it's very useful if you think about it. Imagine if, someone's logging into YouTube and you're saying, like, hi, name, I hope you're having a nice day. You'd be able to basically get their name, get them to fill in a form. So now you store their name in a variable and you're able to then put this out onto the screen for them. Okay, awesome. So we've been working quite a bit with strings now and template literals and all that sort of stuff the last few tutorials. We're going to dive now a bit more into working with other data types such as numbers and Boolean over the next few tutorials. So I'll see you then. Okay, awesome. Okay, in the last few tutorials we worked with strings. What I want to do now is introduce you to a different data type we can work with in JavaScript, and that is numbers. So working with numbers. So in JavaScript, you're able to do a number of things with numbers. You're able to perform math operations. So when I say math operations, I mean you can add numbers together, you can subtract a number from another number, you can do division, you can do multiplication. And how you do that is with the math operators. So there are quite a few to get through. In this tutorial, we're just going to do the basics. We'll just do maybe one example of addition, one example of subtraction, division, and multiplication, and then we'll continue on working with numbers in future tutorials. But how you perform math operators are with the how you perform math operations are with the math operators. So we have the plus sign here if you want to add numbers together, addition. We have the subtraction. We have division, so that's with the slash. And we have the little asterisk here. You press Control 8 on your keyboard and you can perform multiplication. Okay, awesome. So you can store numbers in variables, but what I want to do is just to show you the math operators in use for the first time. Let's just log some stuff out of the console. So what we can do is we can just perform some math operations here. So I might say, okay, let's say 5 plus 5, semicolon to end our statement. This line here is a statement, and let's see what we get. So 5 plus 5, as we know, is 10. I'm going to scroll down to my Google Chrome icon and refresh, and we get 10. Awesome, congratulations, you've just performed your first math operation with me in this tutorial series. Now let's do some subtraction. So let's say console.log. Maybe you have $100 and sadly you owe your friend $25 because they bought you a burger and a milkshake. Yes, $25, inflation is a real thing. So let's save and refresh, we should get 75. Okay, awesome. You can also perform division. So we could say console.log. Maybe you set up a business, cutting grass, mowing people's lawns. You raise $200, we have to split it between 5 people. What's that going to be? So let's just save and refresh, and you get 40 there. Okay, great. And you can also do multiplication. So console.log, maybe, I don't know, you're going to save $2 a day for 365 days in a year. And what will you have saved after a year? Let's find out. You have saved $730. Okay, awesome. So we'll end that tutorial there. We'll work more with maths in the next tutorial. But key point here is in JavaScript, you are able to work with numbers. You can perform math operations such as addition, subtraction, division, multiplication using the math operators. And in this tutorial, we actually used 4 of them for the first time. So I'll leave it there and I'll see you in the next tutorial. Okay friends, welcome back. Okay, in the last tutorial we worked with numbers for the first time, adding numbers together, subtracting numbers, division, multiplication, etc. What I want to do in this tutorial is introduce you to the increment operator. So let's say hypothetically we have a friend, right? So you want to store their variable, we want to store their age in a variable, we'll call it age. So we'll say let age is equal to, and we'll say 29. We'll just assume we're friends with Bruce Wayne, even though Bruce Wayne is more like 40. But assuming he's 29 years of age, right? So now we have this variable called age. We want to just log out to the console, you know, let's say like, happy birthday, Bruce. You are, and then we'll just put in the age variable here. So what we should see logged out to the console is happy birthday, Bruce. You are 29. So let me just refresh, and we see that here. Happy birthday, Bruce. You are 29. Okay, that is awesome. Right now, let's assume that next year it's Bruce's birthday, and we want to increase the age variable. And you will want to increase variables and, you know, increment them up. So what we could do is we could just say age is equal to age plus 1, okay? Right? So remember, we want to write code that is reusable. So the problem with writing, let's say, age is now equal to 30 is then next year I'd have to say age is equal to 31 and then age is equal to 32. And it's best that we can write our code in a more reusable way. So what you could do is say age is equal to age plus 1, right? So what I've done here is, remember, we've already declared the variable age here. That's where we use the let keyword, right? So you don't need to reinitialize the variable later on. You're able to create and initialize a variable with a value for the first time. So age is basically initialized or created as a variable for the first time in this line of code and assigned a value of 29, the number, right? And here what we're doing is we're just saying that age is equal to age plus 1. So I'm not using the let keyword. The age variable has already been declared or defined. So what we're saying is we're saying let age be equal to itself, i.e. 29, and then add 1 to it. So that should give us a value of 30, right? And that's because age already has a value of 29. So we're saying age is equal to itself, i.e. 29 plus 1. So we should see now that age now has a value of 30. To prove that to you, if I just log out to the console, great party again this year, Bruce. You are now, and we're going to log out that age variable. Right, we're going to see 30, aren't we? We're going to see 30. So let me just save and refresh and show it to you. So this year, because we get invited every year, we're good friends with Bruce, we say, great party again this year, Bruce. You are now 30, right? Now, assuming we get invited again the following year and Bruce is now 31, you know, what we could do is we could say age is equal to age plus 1 again. But there's another way you can actually do this, and that's using the increment operator. And the increment operator allows you to add 1 to a variable, in this case a number, right? So all you need to do is just say plus plus. So the increment operator is basically used by typing out plus plus. So what I can do is just write age plus plus, semicolon to end our statement. And this piece of code here actually does the same as this piece of code. So instead of saying age is now equal to itself plus 1, you can just take the variable and use the increment operator. So we're saying age plus plus, right? We're adding 1 to it. So now what's going to happen is, up here we saw age at a value of 30. So if you use the increment operator on a variable with a value of 30, well, 30 plus plus, that's going to give you a value of 31. And to prove this to you, I'll just say console.log happy 31st B-Day, Bruce. And let's log out the variable of age. And this should now be 31, okay? Just to prove that to you, if I save and refresh, we now see 31. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is the increment operator in JavaScript, the increment operator, and it is denoted by the plus plus. And it is very useful later on in this course and working with JavaScript when you start working with loops, okay? So that's the increment operator, very powerful. I'll see you in the next tutorial where we'll do the opposite. We'll use the decrement operator using minus minus. So I'll see you in the next tutorial for that one. Hello friends and welcome back. Okay, in the last tutorial we saw the increment operator where we're able to add 1 to a number by using the plus plus signs or the increment operator. In this tutorial we're going to learn about the decrement operator. Minus minus is how you use that. So what is the decrement operator? Well, basically, the decrement operator is a way in which you can use shorthand notation to subtract 1 from a number. So let's hypothetically assume we're 18 years of age. Our friend has gotten us a job working in their parents' restaurant. Maybe, we're a burger restaurant somewhere in Texas or California, and assuming we're getting paid, let's say $500 US a week, right? So we do our first week in work and we get paid. Congratulations. So we say, let's say bank balance. So let's say bank balance. You can just do balance as well if you prefer. So let's say let balance equal 500, okay? So we've just been paid $500 US. I know you believe me that balance is 500, so if we just console.log out bank balance, and then let's just type out balance there. So all we're doing is logging out to the console this text, that string of bank balance, and then 500. So let's just save and refresh. We get bank balance is now 500. Okay, awesome. Now, let's assume we go out for coffee with a friend and we buy a can of Coca-Cola and it only costs $1. We want to reduce our bank balance by 1. Well, what we can do is we can say balance, if I can spell balance correctly, balance, our bank balance, is equal to balance, i.e. itself, so 500 is equal to 500 minus 1. And now if we log out our new balance, if I say console.log new balance, what are we going to get? Well, what we should get is 499. So let's save and refresh. And now our new balance is 499. It's gone down because we bought a can of Coca-Cola. Now, similar to the increment operator, there's shorthand notation, and that is what brings us to the decrement operator in this tutorial. So all we need to do, instead of saying balance is equal to balance minus 1, we can just say balance minus minus, and that's going to work for us. So balance minus minus using the decrement operator, that is shorthand notation. Look at how much shorter that is compared to this there, that line of code there, okay? And to prove this still works, let me just console.log out new balance again. So let's say new balance again. This should now get 498. Let's save and refresh. And we get our new balance again is 498. We like cans of Coca-Cola, so we're after spending $2 of our hard-earned cash, and we've reduced our bank balance by $2 in total. So guys, that is the decrement operator in JavaScript, where whatever variable it is, you want to subtract 1 from it. You don't need to say, the variable name is equal to the variable name minus 1. You can do that if you like, if you want to make your code quite easy to read, but using the decrement operator is shorthand notation. So here is where we have used the decrement operator for the first time in this course to take 1 away from our variable called balance. And by the way, both the increment operator and the decrement operator are very useful when working with loops. So for example, say hypothetically you want to make a guessing game where, a user has to guess maybe a number between 1 and 10, but you're only going to give them a few guesses. What you'd want to do is, if they keep guessing wrong, take 1 away from their guesses each time. But we can talk about making a guessing game later on in the course. Key takeaway from this tutorial is we've now been introduced to the decrement operator, how we can take 1 away from a variable using minus minus, i.e. the decrement operator. Guys, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Okay, in this tutorial we're going to learn about the modulus operator in JavaScript. So the modulus operator is represented by the percent sign, okay? So what it does is it checks to see basically a number dividing into another number, and then if there's anything left over, okay? So let me just explain that. So for example, if we were to say 2 mod 2, okay, 2 divides in evenly to 2 with nothing left over, okay? So 2 mod 2 would give us 0. Where if we were to say, let's say 3 mod 2, well, 3 divides into 2 only once, and then there's 1 left over. So this is what the modulus operator is about. And it's very useful if you wanted to see if a number was an odd number or an even number. So let me just do some examples. So let's just say console.log. I'm going to say 2 mod 2, semicolon, come down to Google Chrome and refresh, and we get 0. And that's because 2 divides in evenly to 2, and then there's nothing left over. So for example, if I was to then, let's say 8 mod 2. Remember, that's a string, so that's only a string. I'm just doing that so you can see what the result was. So if we console.log 8 mod 2, okay, well, 8 divides in evenly to 2. It goes in 4 times, and then there's nothing left over. There's 0 left over. So this will also give us 0. You see that? 8 mod 2 is 0. But what if I was to do, let's say, console.log 9 mod 2? So let's do a string here, just so we see the output. So 9 mod 2. Well, if I say 9, use the modulus operator 2, we saw here that 8 divides in evenly 4 times with nothing left over. And we know, let's say 10 would divide in evenly 5 times. But with 9 mod 2, there's going to be a 1 remaining. So 1 will be remaining. It's hard to get your head around modulus when you first learn about it, but it is very useful to check and see if a number is odd or even. You don't always have to do mod 2, by the way. So for example, you could check to see if a number divides in evenly to 3. So let's say 9 mod 3. Well, if you were to do that, there would be 0 left over, right? Because 9 divides in evenly to the number 3 with nothing left over. So 0 will be left over. Basically, there's nothing left over. There's no remainder. Okay, let's just save and refresh. And we see that there as well. Okay, awesome. So guys, that's the modulus operator in JavaScript. Very useful if you want to check to see if a number is an odd or an even number. Okay, so in this tutorial, we're going to learn about the last operator that we haven't covered so far in the course, and that is exponents. And that is this guy here. It is a double asterisk. You press Shift and the number 8 on your keyboard to get that double asterisk. Now, this feature was introduced quite recently, around kind of 2016. So it's a relatively modern addition to the JavaScript language. And what it allows you to do is essentially to erase the first operand or number to the power of the second operand or number. So the best way for us to do this is to just do an example with the console. So if I say console.log, and how it works is you could say, for example, 2 to the power of 2 and log that out to the console. So if I go to Google Chrome, whoops, sorry, after shutting down my console, I apologize for that. Let's refresh. So we get 4, okay? 2 to the power of 2 is 4. You could do another example as well. So for example, we could say console.log, maybe 5 to the power of 5. So let's have a look at that. Save and refresh. And we get 3,125. If you wanted a smaller number, we could just say, okay, maybe we want to raise 5 to the power of 2. So Control S to save, little circle disappears. And if I refresh, and we get 25. Okay, awesome. So far in the course, we've seen the mat operators now. So we've learned about the plus sign for addition, the minus sign for subtraction. We've seen the slash, for division. We've seen 1 star where you want to multiply a number by another number. Now we've learned about exponents. We could raise, for example, 2 to the power of 2. We've seen modulo or modulus in a previous tutorial. We've seen the increment operator plus plus and the decrement operator minus minus. And the increment operator and the decrement operator are very useful when working with loops, which we'll cover on later on in this course. So the next thing I want to teach you about is the order of operation. So if that to look forward to in the next tutorial. Okay guys, in this tutorial I want to talk to you about the order of operation. The order of operation is essentially the order in which JavaScript will execute or essentially evaluate your code if you're doing some sort of, mathematical expression that will eventually resolve to some answer. So what I've done here is I've created a variable called result. I've said let result equal to using the assignment operator, and this expression is eventually going to evaluate to something. So previously we've seen things like 2 plus 2 or 10 minus 5, doing just addition by itself or just subtraction or whatever the case may be. But what happens if you had an expression like this? Well, JavaScript will execute this in order of bed mass, okay? So bed mass stands for brackets So we have brackets there, exponents, no exponents in this expression, division, no division, multiplication, we do have multiplication within the brackets, addition and subtraction, okay? So basically JavaScript will look at this code and it's going to say, okay, the first thing I need to do is evaluate everything inside of brackets. So the number 2 is just there by itself. Okay, great. 2 times 5, well, that's going to be 10. Then we need to evaluate 4 times 4. That's going to be 16. And then there's no more brackets to evaluate. And we just have then, you know, the +1 and the -5. So JavaScript says that's great. We've done the brackets. Are there any exponents? No. Division? No. Multiplication? No. Then it does the addition. So the addition, for example, basically it would add those numbers together. So I think we've got 12 and 16 and 1 would be 17. So basically that would be 26, 29 I think. So that would be 29 minus 5. Let's see, that's 26 and 3, 29, yep. And then finally JavaScript will then say, okay, brackets, exponents, division, multiplication, addition, that's all been done. What's left? Subtraction. So then it's going to say, okay, I must take 5 from 29. So that will give us an answer of 24. So let's just log that out to the console. This will be embarrassing if we get it wrong, but then, you know, that's how we learn. So let me just save and refresh. And we get 24. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is bedmass, a concept in JavaScript. It's basically the order of operation, or something to be aware of, you know, in terms of the order of operation. What way will JavaScript perform and, you know, some sort of mathematical expression or equation? Well, like I say, it'll look to the brackets first. If once that's done, or if there are no brackets, it'll move to the exponents. If there's no number, let's say 2 to the power of 2, and remember exponents, we have the double asterisks. Then it'll move on to the division, multiplication, addition, subtraction, etc. Okay, awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Okay, in this tutorial, I want to introduce you to random numbers in JavaScript, and I'm going to show you how you can make a random number in JavaScript, okay? So the reason you want to do or be able to, you know, generate random numbers in JavaScript is it's actually very useful later on in this course when you want to have a situation where the computer maybe makes a decision. Okay, so for example, maybe you're creating a game of, we call it X and O's in Europe. I know it's called tic-tac-toe in America, possibly Canada as well. I should know that because I'm Canadian permanent resident. I don't know what we call it in Canada. Anyway, when it comes to making decisions, you know, even something like chess, for example. Chess is universally known as chess around the world. You know, although you kind of want to be a bit more strategic rather than just generate random numbers. But the point is, you want to be able to generate random numbers in JavaScript. You can use random numbers to help the computer make a decision. So for example, if a number is between 0 and 0.5, maybe the computer will take this action, but if it's above that, the computer will take another action, okay? So in order for us to generate random numbers, we need to know that there's something in JavaScript called the mat object, okay? So it's inbuilt into JavaScript. And what we can do is we can use syntax such as mat with a capital M, a little decimal, say the word random, and then have parentheses following it, and that will generate a random number for us. And what we can do is we can store that in a variable. So let me just show you this. So I'm going to say we can call it random or random number. So we can say let random number equal to, so the assignment operator, and all you need to do is just use this code here, okay? Mat.random. I'll type it out. So it's mat with a capital M. So you say mat dot random, and then what you want to do is have your parentheses and semicolon to end the statement, okay? Now if I save and refresh, we had the last tutorial, nothing's going to happen because I haven't logged it out to the console, right? So what we can do is just say console.log random number semicolon to end statement and save, and I'm going to refresh the browser a few times and let's see what happens. So we get 0.20, now we get 0.4, 0.6, 0.73, 0.01. So every time we're getting a random number, and you'll notice we're getting numbers between 0 and 1. So what mat.random does is it generates a number between 0 and 1, or more specifically, it generates a number that is inclusive of 0, but exclusive of 1. So really it goes from 0 all the way up to like 0.9999999, etc. Okay? Now, if you wanted to round that number, okay, you know, to the nearest decimal, whether it be 0 or 1, you can do that as well. So how you would do that is you would use mat.round. So what you want to do is you want to wrap mat.random in basically wrap that, put it inside of the parentheses here, mat.round, okay? So don't be intimidated by this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say mat.round, okay, open parentheses there, and add a parentheses at the end here and save, okay? So let's just recap. I'm using the let keyword to create a variable. I've named it random number. Notice that it's camel case. There's two words, random number, so the second word number begins with a capital N. Then I've used the equal sign, which we know is the assignment operator, to assign some sort of value into this variable called random number. So what we're doing here is we're saying mat.random, and the mat object is built into JavaScript. We do have access to it. It's like a, I suppose like a power we're able to use. So I'm saying mat.random. Don't forget your parentheses there. And then I'm putting that mat.random into the parentheses of mat.round. So we have let random number equal to mat.round, open parentheses, mat.random, parentheses there for mat.random. That generates a random number, this bit of code here, between 0 and, 0.9999. And we've put it in between those parentheses of mat.round. And then what we're doing is we're just logging the results out to the console. So if I save and refresh, every time I refresh now, we should get a number of 0 or 1. So we get 1, we get 0, 0, 1, 1, 0. Okay, awesome. So guys, that is just an introduction to how you can generate a random number in JavaScript. You just say mat.random parentheses. You can also round that number to the nearest whole number, 0 or 1. There are other things you can do in JavaScript as well, such as mat.floor and mat.ceil. So I'll show you those in the next tutorial. Hey friends, welcome back. Okay, in the last tutorial we were introduced to mat.random, whereby we can use the mat object in JavaScript to generate a random number between 0 and 1, or as I said more specifically, between 0 and 0.999 continuous. We also saw that we can use mat.round to essentially round a number to the nearest whole number. So obviously 0.12 would be rounded down to 0, but something like 0.89 would be rounded up to 1. There's other ways as well you can round off numbers. So there's mat.floor and there's mat.ceil, which I'll introduce you to. Mat.floor, what that will do is that will essentially round a number down and then discard everything after the decimal place. So let me show you an example of this, okay? What I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a variable. We'll say let number equal, and I'm going to assign it the value of 1.44, okay? 1.44. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out to the console that number, but I'm going to use mat.floor. So remember, when you're using the mat object, you just write the word mat with a capital M, .floor, and then parentheses. And what I want to do is I want to pass in that number variable. And remember, number has a value of 1.44. So what's going to happen when I refresh this in the Google Chrome and we look at the console? Well, what's going to happen is mat.floor is going to floor this number down to the nearest whole number. So that'll be 1, okay? It'll basically discard everything after the decimal place. So to prove that to you, if I just refresh, we get 1, okay? I could change that number, let's say, to be 5.34. Again, as I say, mat.floor will essentially round down to the nearest whole number and discard everything after the decimal place. So if I refresh again, we're going to get 5. It is also the case as well that even if I, let's say, put in 5.99, you're probably thinking that's going to give us 6. Well, let's have a look. We still get 5, and that's because, as I say, mat.floor will essentially just discard everything after the decimal place and round the number down to the nearest whole number. If you feel, for whatever reason you're working with the number 5.99 and you want it to round to the nearest number, well, then you could use mat.round. That will round the number to the nearest whole number, but mat.floor will basically round it down. Believe it or not, it's quite useful when you're trying to mimic a dice roll, which we can do in the next tutorial. The other thing then I want to show you is mat.ceil. So what mat.ceil will do is actually round up a number. Ceil, you could almost think of it as like ceiling, okay? It's like the top. So if we say console.log, I'm going to say mat.ceil, if I can spell ceil correctly, parentheses. Let's pass in number here and semicolon to end the statement being that line of code. So we saw with mat.floor how that would round down 5.99. With mat.ceil, this should round up and give us the number 6. So if I save and refresh, we get the number 6. And if we try a different number, maybe I'll say like 2.555, what's going to happen? It should round that number up to the number 3. And we get 3. Again, what if we had, let's say, 2.1345? Well, again, if you want to go to the nearest whole number, you use mat.round. Mat.ceil will round up to the next whole number. So that would actually, in this case, still give us 3. And just to prove that to you, if I change the number to be 4.1345, again, what ceil will do is round it up to the nearest, or to the next number, which in this case will be 5. So mat.ceil rounds up and mat.floor will round down. Okay, right, that's awesome. I think what we'll do is we'll take what we've learned over the last few tutorials now, working with numbers, and learn how to create a dice roll in JavaScript. So I'll show you that in the next tutorial. Welcome back, friends. Okay, in this tutorial we're going to learn how we can mimic a dice roll in JavaScript. So see if you can do this yourself. What we're going to do is we're going to use the let keyword to create a variable called dice roll. Then we're going to assign that variable the value of whatever we get back from using mat.random. So we'll use the assignment operator here. Remember, mat.random will generate a random number between 0 and just under 1. So inclusive of 0, but technically just under 1, okay? So then we're going to multiply this number by 6 to see what happens, and then I'll talk you through the final steps. So we're going to say let dice roll be equal to, and remember when I say dice roll, I just want to get a result that's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. So we're writing code that will mimic the result of a dice roll in the real world. So let dice roll be equal to, and we're going to use the inbuilt mat object in JavaScript, and on that we're going to call or invoke the random method. Don't worry about the syntax for now. Later on in the course we'll be talking about objects and we'll be talking about methods. So right now we've said let dice roll be equal to mat.random. This will get us a result between 0 and just under 1, so 999 continuous. So if I now say console.log dice roll, if I just log this out to the console, I'm going to go down to Google Chrome here and refresh. We see here I get 0.1, okay? So if I refresh again, I get 0.7, 0.79, 0.05, 56, etc. So we're getting numbers between 0 and just under 1, okay? So now what we can do is multiply this by 6, and let's just see what happens now if we do that. So now what's going to happen is we're getting 3 there, we're getting 2, we're getting 1.999. The only problem with this is, we have numbers after the decimal place. So what we can actually do is we can floor that. What we can do is just say mat.floor, and we're going to wrap mat.random times 6 inside of these parentheses, or more accurately, or more specifically, we're going to do what's known as, we're going to pass in this piece of code here, mat.random times 6 into mat.floor. So let's now see what happens when we do that. We get 0, we get 4, we get 2, 0, 4, 2, 2, 3, any 5s here, we get a 5. Okay, so what this is going to do is this is going to give us a number between 0 and 5. Okay, but we don't want a number between 0 and 5, we want a number between 1 and 6. So all you have to do is at the very end here outside of the parentheses, just add 1 to that. Okay, so now what's going to happen is we're actually going to get a number between 1 and 6. So if I just save and refresh, I'll prove this to you. We get 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 4, 3, 5. Do we get a 2 yet? I'll just keep going until we get a 2. There we go. Awesome. Okay. So that is how you can write the code to create a dice roll in JavaScript. What we did was we used mat.random to get a random number between 0 and just under 1. We multiplied that by 6, and then we passed all that into the floor method. We used mat.floor to essentially throw everything away after the decimal place, but that was getting us a number between 0 and 5. So by just adding 1, we get a number between 1 and 6, and we just log it out to the console. Okay, awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hello everyone, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial, I'm going to introduce you to the Boolean data type. So far in this course, we've seen strings. So for example, we've seen we could create a variable, say let name is equal to a string, you know, maybe Jessica, okay? Maybe we have an age variable. Jessica is 27. She's in her, party years, going out drinking and having fun, right? So we've seen this data type here. So we've created a variable, assign it the value of Jessica. So Jessica, that text, is a string. It is a data type known as a string. And let age equal to 27, well, that's going to be a number, isn't it? Obviously, if we put a number inside of quotes, then that would actually be a string. Anything inside of, single quotes or double quotes is a string, okay? Now, the next data type I want to show you is true or false. So we're going to be speaking in this tutorial about the Boolean data type. So Boolean refers to true or false, and it's very useful in JavaScript when you're trying to make decisions later on in the course, when we start learning about comparison operators and if statements, control flow and loops and that kind of thing. But for now, all I want you to be aware of is that there's another data type, and it's called Boolean, okay? And Boolean has a value of true or false. So to see this in action, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable. Imagine a situation where you're a game developer, and if the user is logged in, you show them like a welcome screen. But if the user is not logged in, you have like a login screen or a sign up screen, right? So you want to keep track of whether a user is logged in or not, depending on what actions they take. So all you need to do for that is create a variable. You could say let, and we could say is user logged in, and that could be either true or it could be false. Notice as well with Visual Studio Code that I'm getting it in blue, okay? So true and false are key words in JavaScript. They are reserved words, right? So let me show you this in action. If I say console.log true, that's a Boolean true, okay? However, if I put true inside of quotes, these are different, okay? You'll see this when we log it out to the console. True here in blue is a Boolean value, okay? Whereas true here in strings, that's just in quotes, sorry, in single quotes, that's just a string, okay? So if I just save and refresh the browser, you see the way that true is still blue, and that one is in quotes, okay? So that is a string, okay? So basically, Boolean has a true value or a false value, but true, the Boolean value is different from the string true, okay? Because that's just a string. The same with false. So if we were to say console.log, so false, that is a Boolean value, but if I was to do false in quotes, whether single or double, right, that's only a string. So true and false are Boolean data types. Okay, awesome. Right now, I want to show you this again, but rather than just logging stuff out of the console, let's actually, create a variable and check to see if some condition is true or false, right? So we had Jessica earlier, right? Remember Jessica, our friend? We said let name equal Jessica. Well, maybe we want to check to see if Jessica is of a certain age. Well, I said to you, Jessica was equal to 27, right? What if I want to test to see if Jessica's 27 or not? Well, what we can do is we could do some sort of check, right? We could check to see if her age is equal to 27. Okay, so we'd say console.log, and we could say age, okay, and I want to check to see if she's equal to 21, so I might just do a double equal sign, check to see if age is equal to 21. Let me just save and refresh, and we get false here. We get false, right? So what did I do here? Well, remember, age is a variable, okay, equal to 27. I can't do a check. I can't say, for example, age is equal to, you know, whatever value it is we're checking. Let's say we're checking if she's 30, right? If I say age is equal to 30, I'm not actually doing a check here, right? Remember, we know if we want to assign some sort of value, whether it's a string or a number or even a Boolean, okay, we know we use the assignment operator, one equal sign. So if I wanted to check if age is equal to 27, if I write age is equal to 30 with just one equal sign, I'm not doing a check to see if age is equal to 30. What I'm doing is I'm actually updating the value of age to 30, or assigning a new value, okay? So assigning a new value. And this is a common mistake people new to programming make. Essentially, if you want to do a check if one variable, in this case Jessica's age, is equal to a value, in this case 30, what you want to do is you want to use either a double equal sign for loose equality or a triple equal sign for strict equality. We'll talk about the difference later on in the course between loose and strict equality, but for now the key takeaway is if you want to check to see if Jessica's age is equal to 30, right, we can't do like this, age is equal to 30, because all we're doing is overriding the value. So using one equal sign will reassign a new value to the age variable. If you want to do a check, what you'd have to do is basically check to see, you know, if age was equal to 30. And what I can do is I can just paste that into console.log. So the console is great. You can also check to see, you know, if one variable is equal to another. So this should be false, right? Because we know she's not 30. But maybe a few years go by and Jessica actually does reach her 30th birthday. Congratulations, Jessica. Hopefully we get an invite. So now what we're doing is we're saying, okay, let age equal 30. Jessica's age is 30. And now down here we're doing a check. You know, is age loosely equal to 30? Note the use of two equal signs. And let's find out. True. Yeah, Jessica is equal to 30. So guys, the key takeaway from this tutorial is, I know I spoke to you about, you know, loose equality, strict equality, very briefly. We'll talk about later in the course. The key takeaway from this tutorial is I just want you to be aware of the fact that there's another data type in JavaScript known as Boolean values, and Boolean can be essentially true or false, okay? So we can basically perform checks to see if one variable is equal to another, and if you're able to check to see if something is true or false, you're then able to make decisions later on in JavaScript when we start covering, you know, if statements as part of control flow. You know, if statements are used for making decisions, loops are used for maybe running a piece of code over and over again. So Booleans are an important data type to understand, and for this part of the course, just be aware of that they exist. Okay, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial. We're going to talk about arrays in JavaScript. Array! All right, we are going to cover arrays in JavaScript. Arrays are one of my favorite topics in JavaScript. Arrays are very cool. So what is an array? An array is essentially a collection of data. So far what we've seen is we know how we can create variables, right? We might say, you know, let name equal to, let's say, Jessica, right? Okay, maybe we have an age for Jessica. We said it was her 30th birthday in a previous tutorial, but now we want to get her email address, and we're starting to get like a lot of data just, you know, in these random variables, right? There are different ways to organize data when you work with more than just a name or an age, etc. And this brings us nicely to other data types such as arrays and objects. So what is an array? Well, an array is a collection of data. An array can store multiple different data types, but for this tutorial, we'll just work with an array of strings. So we can do an array of heroes, for example. So we'll say let heroes, I beg your pardon, equal to. And what you do is you use square bracket notation. So this is going to be an array. So we're going to work with DC heroes. So we're going to have Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Robin. Okay, right. So these are the heroes. Right. So this is an array. Okay. So we're saying let heroes equal to, and we have this array here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just log out the heroes array to the console, and let's have a look and see what we get. Okay. Let's try that again. Heroes. Awesome. Okay. Semicolon to end that statement. So what I've done is I've created an array called heroes, let heroes equal to, using square bracket notation, and we have this string here. So Superman is known as the first element in the array, Wonder Woman is the second element, Batman is the third element, and Robin is the fourth element, right? So let's now log this out to the console and see what we get. So if I save and refresh, we're seeing here we're getting our array. So we have Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, and Robin, okay? Now the first thing you'll notice is, while we as humans would say Superman, and by the way, every different string in this array is known as an element, okay? So Superman's an element, Wonder Woman's an element, Batman, Robin, etc., right? So we would say, like, you know, Superman is the first hero in the array. But what you'll notice is you have a 0 here, okay? Then a 1, then a 2, then a 3. So JavaScript is a 0-based language. And what that means is JavaScript starts counting at 0. Actually, computers start counting at 0, right? So what we have are these key value pairs, okay? So for JavaScript, it's going to say that heroes at index 0 is Superman, heroes at index 1 is Wonder Woman, heroes at index 2 is Batman, and heroes at index 3 is Robin, okay? So you notice we have these key value pairs. So at index 0, you've access to Superman, and at index 1, you've access to Wonder Woman. So what do I mean by that? Well, instead of logging out the entire array using const.log heroes, we can just access, using square bracket notation, whatever element we want based on their index. So if we want to access Superman, I just, inside the square brackets there, put 0. So if I now save and refresh, and remember, heroes at index 0 is Superman, so if I now refresh, we get Superman. Okay, awesome. Now, if you wanted to access Wonder Woman, what do you think you would do? Well, you change that to be 1, right? Because remember, this is heroes at index 0, heroes at index 1. So this is an important concept to know when you're working with arrays, that JavaScript starts counting at 0. So it's 0, 1, 2, 3. And then we get Wonder Woman. Okay, awesome. Now, just for practice, can you get Batman? Well, yeah, change that to 2. Remember, heroes at index 0, heroes at index 1, heroes at index 2. So that will get you Batman. I'll just save and refresh to show you. Good practice. And then if you want Robin, we just change that to the number 3. Okay? And why is it 3? Remember, heroes at index 0, heroes at index 1, heroes at index 2, heroes at index 3. So that will be Robin. Okay? Awesome. Okay, so the next thing to note is if I just don't access an individual element in the array, and let's just log out all the heroes again, there's another piece of data we're provided with an array. And you'll notice here, if I hit on the drop down, we get this property called length, okay, of 4. So you're also able to access the length property of an array. So if I, at the end of heroes, type heroes.length, okay, this is going to log out the length of the array, which we know has 4 elements in it. So if I go down to Chrome and refresh, we access the length property of 4. So being able to know the length of an array is very useful. We'll see that later on in the course, because arrays work beautifully, by the way, with loops and arrays, very well work together. Okay, so the key takeaway from this tutorial is we've now seen in this course our first array together. It is an array called heroes. It has 4 elements in it, and it is an array of strings, okay? But you don't always have to have, an array of strings. You can also have an array of numbers if you like. So let's work on that in the next tutorial. Okay, so in the last tutorial, we were introduced to arrays. We know what an array is. So this is an array here, this line. Okay, awesome. So just for a bit of practice, you could make an array of cities as well if you wanted to. So you could say let cities equal to, and then just come up with some cities here. We might do European cities. So let's say, like, Madrid, Paris, Rome, and maybe we'll do like Warsaw or something. Right. Okay. Warsaw. Okay, awesome. Right. So now we've created a new array using the let keyword. We've created a variable called cities. What we've done is using one equal sign, i.e. the assignment operator, we've assigned it the value of this array. Okay, so we have our opening and closing square bracket there, and we have our different elements. Each one is a string, comma, separated. Okay, awesome. Now, as I said in the last tutorial, an array can store multiple data types, okay? So, it doesn't have to be an array of strings. You could also do an array that had numbers in it, maybe even a non-value as well. We'll learn about something called null later on in this course where we just don't have a value for something. So let's actually do an example of an array with numbers, okay? So what we're going to do is, let's just go back to our heroes, okay? Sorry about this now. Should have left the array. Whoops. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new array and we're just going to call it like pocket change or change for our heroes, okay? So let me just delete that there. Okay, so let's assume we're in a situation where our heroes were out drinking with Superman and Wonder Woman and Batman and Robin. We're having a great time. Let's say we're somewhere in Texas, maybe we're near Dallas or Houston, but we're staying like 20 minutes away in like a slightly more rural area of Texas. So we're out in some sort of bar and then we want to get home and it's going to cost $50 and we want to ask around, Superman, Wonder Woman, what sort of change do you have, okay? So maybe Superman, because he's a reporter, has $30. Wonder Woman only has $10. We're like, oh, we're short, right? We need $50. Batman has nothing. Batman has nothing. He's so used to everything being paid from. No, I'm joking. Batman is very wealthy, but like, why don't you have money with you, Batman? Come on, Bruce. And Robin has maybe left his wallet inside, right? So we have a null value there. We've no value for Robin, and we'll, as I say, learn more about null later on in this course. So right now, we don't have enough change, i.e. money, to pay $50 for a taxi back to where we're staying, because we're all out partying, right, as I say. Robin goes back into the bar, he finds his wallet, and he actually has a lot more than we thought. He's like $100, so that's totally great. We can now totally afford to pay for the taxi. So guys, very briefly, that is an example of an array with numbers. We can just change it to money if you don't call it change where you're from. But basically, it's comma separated as well. I mean, you could just, as well, if you wanted, you could create a random array and it could have a combination of strings and numbers. But, typically when you're organizing data, you probably won't have that, okay? If you want to mix up data, strings, numbers, that kind of thing, Boolean, you can do that in an object. It's another data type, which we'll discuss later on in the course. And the last thing I want you to be aware of as well is you can actually create an empty array, okay? So maybe we want to create an array called movies, and we don't have any movies yet in our database, so it's just going to be an empty array. So this here is me creating a variable called movies, and we've assigned it the value using the equal sign, an empty array. So that there is an example of an empty array. And you're probably wondering why you'd ever want to create an empty array. Well, hypothetically, maybe you're creating some sort of like YouTube or Spotify clone, and there's going to be like a watch later or favorite songs, a user can add to. Maybe their favorite songs is an empty array for now, and every time they see a song they like, they click on a button, add to favorites, and then we add a song or a movie, whatever the case is, into an array, okay? So guys, that is arrays in JavaScript. We'll touch upon later again in the course when we start looking at loops. So we've now covered a few different data types in this course so far. We've seen strings, a string of text. We've seen numbers, like the number 30 or 10 or whatever. And we've also seen arrays, okay? So let's continue talking about data types in the next tutorial. Hey friends, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what we're going to do is we're going to cover two new data types in JavaScript, one of which you've actually already seen before, and these are null and undefined, okay? Null and undefined. Null actually has a lowercase n, okay? So essentially, so far we've seen strings. We want to intentionally write a string, maybe let name equal Jessica or let age equal a number, and we've seen arrays. But sometimes we're not always going to have data, for example, right? So say hypothetically, I was to ask you to create some variables for Superman. I say, I want you to create a variable, say let name equals Superman. You can do that, that's a string. Maybe I tell you he's 35. I say, let his age be 35. But then I say, well, what's his address? And you're saying, well, I don't know his address. I don't know his address. We'd all be there with our cameras, right? We'd say Superman. Anyway, long story short, if we have a variable where we don't have the data for it, we can explicitly state we don't have a value. So we could put that value to be null, okay? So for example, we could say let Superman address be equal to null. So just imagine in the real world, you're working in a human resources department and, you've just offered a candidate a job and they've accepted, and your boss says, oh, that's fantastic, we really need new people, can you send me on some of their details? And again, you might be saying, okay, well, their name is Jessica, their age is this, but you're thinking, oh, I never got their phone number. So what's Jessica's phone number? You might say, let Jessica's phone number be equal to null. So null is basically us explicitly stating that a variable has no value. So null we can use to explicitly state that a variable has no value. Okay, awesome, right? And we saw an example of this, by the way, in the last tutorial. Do you remember where Robin went in, he forgot his wallet, so we didn't know how much money he had, so we had to say that was a null value until he came out and needed $100. So we can use null to explicitly state a variable has no value. Now, undefined is another, essentially data type we have to learn in JavaScript, and you'll come across undefined when you work with programming where, maybe you're trying to access a part of an array that doesn't exist, or you're trying to access a variable, you think you've defined it, but you haven't. So what do I mean by that? Well, so far in this course, whenever we've created a variable, we've used the let keyword, we've given it a name, the variable name, and we've assigned it some sort of value, right? But what if I just did this? What if I said let age semicolon? Well, age is a variable, but it hasn't been assigned a value or anything like that. So if I say console.log age, what do you think we're going to get here, right? So it's the only thing we're logging out to the console. What are we going to get? Let's have a look. We actually get undefined because this age variable has not been defined, okay? So that's a boo-boo on our part. Essentially what I'm trying to say is you can have essentially no values in JavaScript. Null is where we intentionally assign null. Okay, we don't know the age, so we could do that here as well. Or we don't know the address Superman, we could do it for age here as well, let age equal to null. But undefined is something you will come across. So the difference between null and undefined is really about intent, right? Null is where you don't have a value for, let's say, Jessica's phone number, Superman's address. You know that, so you can essentially take that variable and assign it a value of null, okay? It has no value. We're explicitly saying that. It prevents errors. Where undefined, you kind of don't want to be coming across that, but that can happen. For example, like I say, an age variable has not been, essentially initialized and assigned a value. It had no value. Another way I could show you this as well is if you take our array, our heroes array, right? So we learned previously that JavaScript starts counting at 0. So hopefully by now you can access each of these. So for example, if we say console.log heroes, so we're getting our heroes, that's the name of our array. And we know if we use square bracket notation, we can access any of the elements in that array. So at index 0, we'll get Superman, right? Let me show you this. That's awesome. We know that if I type in 1 here, we'll get Wonder Woman, 2 for Batman, 3 for Robin, right? But what happens if I put an index 4? Well, there is no index 4, right? It's 0, 1, 2, 3. There's nothing there. So that would be undefined. So if I come down to Chrome and refresh, we actually get undefined, okay? So key takeaway from this tutorial is we have null. We can explicitly state a variable has no value, like I did here. And we can also have undefined, and we saw 2 examples of that. maybe you're trying to access a part of an array that doesn't exist, or you're trying to do something with a variable that actually hasn't been assigned a value. So for example, we saw let age, okay? Also, hopefully you're getting the hang of this by now, but null, that keyword in JavaScript, so that is null, okay? But if you put it in quotes, that's a string. So that's just a string, right? That's not a data type called null. So you want to have null outside of quotes, right? Okay, awesome. Guys, I hope that tutorial made sense. So we've now covered a large number of data types in JavaScript. We haven't covered objects yet. That's something we'll have to learn about. But so far in the course now, we've seen strings, numbers, arrays, Boolean values, true, false. We've seen null a couple of times before. Now we've really been introduced to it. It's where you explicitly state a variable has no value. And we've seen undefined. Perhaps we're trying to access or do something with a variable that doesn't exist. Okay, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next tutorial. Hello friends and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how you can get user input, how you can have some sort of prompt for the user, and then we're going to store that in a variable. I'm also going to show you how you can check the data type, and if necessary, how you can actually change a data type. So we've got to look forward to in this tutorial. So how you can prompt a user is with window.prompt, parentheses, and then have some sort of string message inside of that. So what I'll do is I'm going to say window.prompt, then we have our parentheses, and what we can do is we'll have some sort of message. Maybe we'll say something like, please enter your name, and semicolon to end our statement here. Remember, a line of code in JavaScript, you can just call it, this here is a statement. Okay, so now if I go to the Google Chrome browser and refresh the page, we get a prompt. It says, this page says, please enter your name. So maybe Bruce Wayne is looking at our application for some reason, he wants to invest, so we enter that. But what you'll notice is, while we've done that prompt, we haven't actually stored the data anywhere, so we're just prompting the user to input some data, but we haven't actually stored that anywhere. So what you can do is you can just take all of that and store it in a variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to say let user input, and note the use of camel case here, so lowercase u for the first word and uppercase I for the second word, and all we're going to do is just use the equal sign or the assignment operator to assign that the value of whatever the user inputs. Okay, so that's all I'm doing. So we're saying let user input, our variable, be equal to, assign the value of window.prompt, and then we have please enter your name. So whatever the user types in will be stored in our variable. And just to prove that to you, I will just console out to the console the user typed in, okay, and whatever the user input is. Okay, so let's try this again. So this time, instead of just putting out a prompt to the window, we're now storing it inside of a variable, user input, and then we're just saying console.log, the user typed in, and whatever the value was. So let's try this again. Let's save and refresh. Please enter your name. So I'm going to say Bruce Wayne, press OK, and then we get the user typed in Bruce Wayne. We don't even have to have this message here. You can just simply log out to the console, whatever it is the user typed in. So let's try this one more time. And by the way, this is really awesome, by the way, because if you think about it, we're now able to get user input. So we'll say, my name is Batman. Okay, maybe it's 8 o'clock, Bruce has had too many cocktails. My name is Batman. Okay, awesome. Now, what I want to do is, I want to show you how you can essentially check the type of a variable, okay? So all you need to do is, let's just delete this. We can say console.log type of, okay? So type of, it's all one word, there's no space and it's lowercase. And what you can do is just pass in the variable, okay? So if we just save and refresh, what I'm doing is I'm just logging out whatever the user typed in its data type. So please enter your name. We'll just say Bruce. If I press OK, see here we get string. Okay, so see it is of type string. So guys, that's how you can send out a prompt message to the user, and you can store it in variable. but you can also check the type by using type of parentheses and passing in to type of whatever variable it is you're looking to check the type of. Now there are some weird behaviors in JavaScript you need to be aware of. So what I'm going to do is let's change the request for the user to enter their name, to enter their number. Maybe we've gone out drinking with Bruce and we met someone we really liked, and we're single right now for some reason, we want to meet someone. So we say, oh, please can I have your number? Please enter your number, right? So let's now save and refresh. Okay, and let's see what happens when I enter a number. So please enter your number. I'm going to do 647-101-0000, right? Press OK. We get type string. You're saying, what the hell? That was clearly a number. So this is the interesting thing about JavaScript. There will be some weird behaviors which we can talk about throughout this course, okay? But you're asking for a number, but yet JavaScript is given that as a type string. So what you can do is you can actually change the type, okay? You can actually change the type that the user has input, okay? So how you could do that is, so we've said let user input equal window.prompt in the message. We've stored it inside of user input. What we could do is we could reassign the value of user input equal to itself and then pass that into something in JavaScript called number. So in JavaScript that there's this inbuilt power we can use called number, and if you pass in whatever it is you're looking to pass in this case the user input, it will convert that to type number. So what we can do now is we can just store that inside of user input. So I know this is a bit confusing. Let me just talk about what we've done. Let me just show you this first and then we'll talk through it. Okay, so on this line here we've created a variable called let user input. Okay, so when we declare let user input, we're creating a variable called user input, and we are assigning that the value of the user input, because remember we're using window.prompt, we're saying please enter your number. Okay, then what happens is, assuming the user enters the number, what we're going to do is we're going to take that user input, maybe that 647 number, and user input we're going to pass it inside of parentheses to this number power here, and then assign that to user input. So really what I'm doing here is I'm taking the user input, converting it to type number, and then storing it in the variable of user input. And then if we just console.log out to the console type of, what we'll see is this should now actually be of type number, and we'll just log out the user input. Okay, so let's save and refresh. I know this is a bit confusing, by the way, so we'll talk through it again. So save and refresh. So we have please enter your number. So we'll say 647-101-40. I just made this number up, by the way. I hope this isn't someone's actual number. So you see here, now we get it is of type number, and we log out the number. So how do we do that? Well, we use window.prompt, okay, that inbuilt superpower in JavaScript. We then, inside of parentheses and inside of quotes, we say please enter your number. We store that in this variable called user input. But we saw how JavaScript can act a bit weird sometimes, so even though we entered a number, it's coming back as type string, and we didn't want that. So all we do down here on this line is we take the user input, we pass it into number inside of parentheses, and that then means that user input, whatever the user has typed in, has now been changed to type number. And then all we do is we just log out to the console the type of user input, which we've converted to a number here. So on this line, we basically change the data type from a string to a number. And then all we're doing here is we're just logging out to the console. We're just logging out to the console, the data type, and the value, whatever it was the user typed in. Okay, so just to save and refresh this one more time, please enter your number, or we could even say like please enter your age. So let's do that. So we could say please enter your age. Maybe, for conversation starter, we're going to ask their age before we get straight to asking for their number. Bruce is drunk though, he's just asking everybody. So please enter your age. Well, let's pretend I'm 29. I'm actually 32, but age or number there is 29. Okay, awesome. So I hope you enjoyed that tutorial. Key takeaways are essentially you can use window.prompt to prompt out a message to the user. Then there's like an input field that appears. You can store that in a variable by just using the equal sign or the assignment operator. So let user input equal to window.prompt and then the message. We saw when we used type of that even when a user was putting in their digits, their number, their age, it was coming out basically as type string. So if I just showed you how you can convert that to a number. Just pass in the variable name inside of number, and then you can store that in a variable, and then we just logged out the type of variable and whatever it was the user typed in. Okay, watch that tutorial again. I know that was a bit of new information we learned here together. So guys, that's awesome. I'll see you in the next one. Hey everyone, and welcome back. Okay, in this tutorial we're just going to do a quick review of what we've learned so far. So I went and got a coffee before recording this video, hence why over an hour has passed. I got Tim Hortons, it's very good. Okay, so far in this course we've covered a few different topics. Okay, so we've seen variables and the different types of variables. We've seen let, var, and const. So var was the old way of declaring a variable. So for example, we might say, var name is equal to, and you might say, Bruce Wayne or Jessica or something like that. So we've created a variable, it's called name. We've seen the equal sign, so that's the assignment operator. That's where you're assigning some sort of value, in this case a string, to a variable, okay? But we also saw that let is now the more modern way of creating variables in JavaScript. So we've let name equal to Bruce Wayne. So maybe, for example, the variable is actually our friend's name. So like our friend's name. So, Bruce Wayne is a really good friend, and then he goes off traveling and we don't see him for a while. So then we make friends with the Flash instead, or Wonder Woman. So now Wonder Woman is now our new friend while Bruce is off traveling, okay? So basically the key thing about let is you're able to reassign a different value to a variable. You can't do that with const, okay? So for example, maybe your date of birth, so date of birth, let's say hypothetically my date of birth was, May 5th, 1989. It's actually not, by the way. How dare you? I'm younger than that. But, that would hypothetically always be my birth date. So I couldn't reassign, date of birth later on, because as far as I'm aware, you're only born once, right? So I couldn't now come down here and say date of birth is now equal to, we'll say April 11th, 1995, right? That, you're not able to reassign the value of a variable. So if I console.log out, date of birth, what do we get in the console? Well, let's have a look. So const date of birth is equal to this string, and then here what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reassign the value, a different birth date basically to that variable, and we know with const that's not going to work. Okay, so we actually get an error, assignment to constant variable. Okay, so remember, if you have a variable where you want to update the value of it potentially, you can use let. With const you won't be able to do that, right? Because it's const for constant. Okay, awesome. We also saw in JavaScript that we can create comments. So for example, this is a comment that would be a single line comment, and use the forward slash and the asterisk to create a multi-line comment. So this is a multi-line comment, okay? And comments are very useful if you're working on a very large project, writing basically instructions or snippets of code or explaining things for other developers. This is where we maybe create a user, this is where we get data, etc. Now, crucially in this course so far, we've also seen the different data types, okay? So we've seen, for example, string, so let name equal to Jessica. And remember, when you're working with a string, if you start with a single quote, you must end with a single quotation. And similarly, you can also use double quotes. Just make sure you start and end with the same quote. Otherwise, you're going to get errors. So for example, if I was to start Jessica with a single quote and then come in at the end and try to do a double quote, that's not going to work. So you just need to be consistent, okay? So that is a variable called name. The variable is called name, okay? You see that there. And it is of type string. We can also create, ages in JavaScript, so that'll be of type number. So let age equal to 37, okay? And remember, 37 in quotes would actually be a string, so that's different to 37, the number, okay? We've also seen Boolean, so we could say, you know, for example, has paid, maybe we're running a gym, and that's true. Jessica is very diligent. Thanks for paying, Jessica. So this is a string, that is a number, and this is a Boolean value. We also saw arrays in JavaScript. For example, we could have an array, we could say let heroes equal to, maybe we have, you know, Superman, comma separate, Batman, Wonder Woman. Maybe we're also going to have the Flash, and, you know, let's include Aquaman. We're getting the whole team together. We're going to have a bit of a party or something, okay? So we saw that we have an array here. So basically, you can say let the array name, so it could be heroes, it could be cities, use the equal sign, and we open and close the array with square bracket notation, and then this is the 0th index of the array. So if we wanted to log out Superman, we just say console.log heroes at index 0, so it's 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that is an array, and it is an array of strings, okay? It is an array of strings. We also saw undefined. So for example, if I was to try log out to the console, an index in the array that didn't exist, we get undefined. So we know, for example, this array starts at 0. So if I console.log heroes, so just the array name at index 0, that's going to give us Superman, right? So just to prove that, we get Superman. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, if I was to try, you know, const.log at index 4, we're going to get Aquaman, okay, because that's the last value in the array. But if I go one beyond that, beyond, it's like we're talking Star Trek, like index 5, well, that's not going to work, right? There's no index 5, so we're going to get undefined, okay? So we've seen the undefined data type. We've also seen, of course, as well, null, where, you know, we explicitly say a variable has no value. So maybe we want to get another hero invited over, but, you know, we've said, well, we want to get someone else. We don't have a value yet. We're waiting to see who's going to join our team. You know, you could put in null there, okay? So now we get null rather than undefined. We spoke previously about the difference between undefined and null. Null is where we explicitly state a variable has no value, and undefined, we've made a mistake in our code, basically. So I don't know if any of you watch a superhero series called Boys on Amazon Prime. They often talk about the seven best heroes. Well, maybe there's a vacancy, right? So if we were to say console.log the 7 and have, like, you know, Homelander and whoever else, you know, potentially there's a vacancy, so we could have like null in there, okay? Objects is a very important data type in JavaScript. I don't say it's the most powerful, but if you get good at coding, you end up working for a company, you're going to have to know about objects. I decided we'll cover that later on in the course, so we will talk about objects later on in this course. So you don't need to worry about that for now. Just be aware that objects do exist in JavaScript. We also saw how we can use the console. You've seen that here, console.log. And in the previous tutorial, we saw how we could, you know, prompt a message to the user and get them to basically put in some input. So we saw that previously, you know, where we did window.prompt, some sort of message, and then you can store that in a variable. So guys, that's just a quick recap of what we've covered so far. So we've covered, you know, the different types of variables, let, var, const. We've seen multi-line comments and single-line comments in JavaScript. Just be aware of the different data types for now: string, numbers, Boolean, null, arrays, undefined objects. Don't worry, it'll come more natural to you as we progress through the course. We saw arrays, one of my favorite data types. And like I say, we haven't covered objects yet, but we will. Okay, that's awesome. In the next part of the course, kind of chapter or part 2, we're going to start talking about control flow in JavaScript, how we can make decisions, how we can repeat code. So we'll be looking at things such as if statements and loops, etc. So it's a pretty cool power to know. So I'll see you in the next tutorial.